How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Resident Evil. Welcome to Raccoon City. This is from November 24th, 2021, a Thanksgiving Day release. Most movies are Friday with early screenings on Thursday, but this Thursday was Thanksgiving, so we're getting this movie coming out the Wednesday before so you can go see it, around Thanksgiving time. This is directed by Johannes Roberts, who I'm actually starting to become a pretty big fan of. He did the 47 Meters Down movies, but he would later go on to make Strangers Pray at Night, which is a very good, underrated movie. I think it was the first Strangers was an art house home invasion movie, and then he made a pretty straightforward slasher, but it's a good genre film, and I really did love Strangers too. So, I should check out more of what he does. He actually has a long history making horror films, a lot of low-budget stuff, and it's cool to see this guy having more success. He actually did Roadkill from this Maneater series, so I should probably check this out pretty soon. But yeah, I really like his work. Really good, creepy stuff, so I am glad to see him doing this, and I thought it worked out pretty well. This movie stars Kaya Scodeiario, Hannah, John-Kamen, and Robbie Amell. Sorry if I mispronounced any of these names. But I suppose the first thing I should say is my experience with the Resident Evil franchise. I always liked the look and the feel of the games. I loved the atmosphere, the monsters, and the world that they had created, but fact is, I'm not really a huge gamer, so I had very limited experience with this world, and in turn, because I liked the world but not being a gamer, whenever they did something, movie-wise, I was always keen to look at it, and I'm a huge horror movie geek, and the original movie, 2002, was almost 20 years ago. I was a lot younger. I was a kid and I didn't have that much money, so to get horror movies, this was before the days of streaming, I would go down to my local library and I literally watched almost every single horror movie my library had, and that included the first few Resident Evil movies, and, again, 20 years ago, a younger kid, and I really enjoyed them when I was younger, but these past few years I was kind of afraid to rewatch them, knowing that they probably wouldn't hold up. And I rewatched the first one before I went to see this movie, and yeah, it doesn't hold up perfectly, but it wasn't as bad as I feared. And I think, time has passed and we can kind of accept them for what they were. And, they got fun parts, but yeah, not super faithful. But yeah, when I was a kid, I watched the first couple of them a bit, and I really did find them entertaining. But now I kind of know more what they are. My brother is a much bigger Resident Evil fan. He has a few reviews for the games on this channel as well. And I'll have him edit this video, and if I say anything that's totally off, he'll come in and cut it out or correct me or something. So I'll have him kind of doing that. And at the end of this video, he'll pop in with his thoughts, anything I missed or anything he wanted to say, so he'll come in at the end there. But anyway, I was really looking forward to this. I saw the trailer, and it had a better look to it, very creepy, and I love the atmosphere, I love the look of the zombies. They looked much more Romero than they had previously. In fact, there's a Romero Day of the Dead show, and I feel the zombies in this movie are much more faithful than the actual Romero-branded thing, so I liked the look of it, and I was really eager for this one. I was really wanting to go in and like it, and then I saw all those reviews pouring in. So many people were criticizing and tearing this movie apart, so I had my expectations set pretty low, but I went in and I saw it, and I thought it was pretty fun. Maybe it's, me not being a huge gamer, maybe I missed something, and I don't really know, but I really feel pretty sad for the director, Johannes Roberts. he did a really good slasher movie with Strangers 2, and now he's doing a really good zombie film. I feel he can make really good genre films, but the internet hates them for some reason. I don't know what it is. I don't know. And if you have an opinion, feel free to let me know. Like, if you have something like, oh, why didn't you see this? This is a huge fault in this movie, you know. Definitely let me know if you have a difference of opinion. Just, you know, keep the discussion civil. But this is another case of going to a movie, coming out, really liking it, and then the internet hates it for whatever reason. I don't know why. But I really did enjoy this movie, you know. I'm a zombie geek. I love zombie movies, and, you know, I felt that this one was really well made, and, you know, the atmosphere was right, and, you know, a cool, grungy, rundown city, zombies popping up, Romero-esque. You know, I thought it was cool, but yeah, I don't know. There are faults with this, you know, and I'll go ahead and talk about some of the things. You know, there is certain elements that are handled pretty directly and kind of bluntly. For example, this movie's set in the 90s, and I really did like, you know, keeping it around the time the actual games were set. And it is cool to do a 90s throwback movie. But for a lot of the movie, you forget it's set in the 90s, and they'll pull out some piece of old tech like a pager, or some guy will be playing Snake on his phone, or there'll be some musical cue like, hey, here's a 90s song. So, you know, it does kind of where you forget it's the 90s, and then there's some blunt reference, you know, so I get that. And there are a few very direct moments. You know, I talked about the music. There's one scene where this zombie is walking when he's on fire, and they, for whatever reason, just crank up the music here, and it doesn't quite work. There's also, you know, wanting to be quirky. There's a scene where Chris and Claire are talking to each other, but she was snooping around his house and had put on his football helmet, and when they start to talk, she just keeps the football helmet on for the whole conversation. So one of those, hey, look, we're quirky moments. And it did feel a little blunt, but, you know, whatever. Movies gotta be a little quirky sometimes. You know, give it a little more life than all those stern and serious movies, you know? And then there are some video game Easter eggs that are a little direct, you know? Some lady who's turning into a zombie just writes itchy, tasty, and blood on a window because, you know, that's from the video games. And that's another example of being pretty darn direct, you know? So there is that, and, you know, there's a scene where Jill takes someone's sandwich and goes, well, now it's a Jill sandwich. So, yeah, there are some moments in this movie that are a little direct, a little heavy-handed, but that's not really enough to weigh it down, and overall, I thought it was fun, but, yeah, I really don't know what the internet's problem is. Let's go ahead and talk a bit about the plot. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to say my piece on a few plot points and make sure you guys have a basic understanding as to what this movie's about. Let's go ahead and talk about Claire first. Claire, we open up with her and her brother Chris. They're young and they're orphans. They're at the Raccoon City orphanage, which is sponsored by Umbrella, and you get to see Umbrella posters and propaganda. And I really do like it's not just them putting their symbol on everything. They try to incorporate Umbrella like a natural element into this world. So if someone was, you know, wearing an Umbrella shirt, it's not just the symbol. They go, okay, if Umbrella was sponsoring an event in the mid-90s and they gave out a free t-shirt, what would that look like? You know, and I did feel all the different Umbrella designs and pieces of, you know, stationery and stuff really did feel naturally integrated where it felt like a real company. And you do see them, you know, their logos all over this place. But anyway, it's the middle of the night and she sees a scary woman at the orphanage, but turns out she's non-hostile, and she says she came up from the basement. So there's something going on at this orphanage, but we cut away to the present before we can find out too much more. But this will be a source of constant flashbacks, getting to learn a little bit more about Claire's origin when she was a child. Nothing that really shakes things up too much, but explaining a little bit of what's going on. We jump to the present and we find out that Claire had run away for years and years, and she's estranged from her brother, but she has to go back to Raccoon City. she was on an internet chat room, and of course you get a joke where no one in 1998 knows what that is, and she learns that there's some sort of chemical spill in Raccoon City, and she has to go get her brother out of Raccoon City and save him, so she's been away for a long time, and she's like, I can't just leave my brother in that situation, so she goes down there and finds his house. It turns out Chris is a cop now, and he doesn't believe any of this, and says, look, good to see you again, but I gotta go to work, and he leaves her at the house, where eventually the zombies do show up, and when the world is overrun by zombies, she has to fight her way from the house to the police station to hopefully find her brother. Now, the rest of the characters are pretty much police. You get Leon, and much like the games, it's his first day, but you get to see more of the other cops, and they play off the fact that he's an outsider. And this version of Leon seems more, more of an outsider, and messes up a little more often. So if they get to RE4, I wonder how they'll explain that he's like a presidential bodyguard now. That's kind of a jump for this version of the character, but whatever, we'll see if they make more of these. But Leon's the outsider. Everyone else there has a sense of camaraderie. They all fit together, they're a solid team, and they're in a bad place. You see, Umbrella is moving their business out, and Raccoon City had built the town around the business, and with that gone, the town is dying. So a lot of people have moved out. The whole place is grungy. Everybody's not doing really good financially. So it's a beat-up, run-down town, which would explain the town's physical appearance, They're all there at the police station, and Umbrella put out through a siren a big warning, hey everybody, stay in your homes, it's dangerous, just lock yourselves in your house. And the police doesn't know what's going on. You get to meet the chief, and I think the chief is the same guy who was Bullock on Gotham. If not, he does a very similar character, and he's a really good part of the movie. I love to see him get angry and snap at things and be over the top. So the chief was really cool. But yeah, they don't know what's going on. They don't know what this warning from Umbrella is. But on top of that, a few of their men went to investigate the Spencer mansion. There's apparently a report of a dead body there, and they haven't heard back from them in a long, long time. So most of the cops, Chris, Jill Valentine, and Wesker, get in a helicopter and fly to the Spencer mansion, and they're going to be investigating there. A very cool haunted mansion set, and even a few nods to the puzzles. There's no big over-the-top puzzle sequence, but there is a few nods to the puzzles from the game, which I really do appreciate, and I could have used more puzzles. I love puzzles, but it's good to see that they're there, and good to see that reference. And yeah, the mansion scenes are pretty cool. The chief of police is still at the police station with Leon, and Leon is manning the desk. It's just basically someone's got to do it, and he's sitting there not paying attention. But eventually zombies do come up, they lock the police station gate, and the whole thing's surrounded by zombies, So you're gonna get Claire coming to the police station, looking for her brother, meeting up with Leon, and those two will be a team, and then you get the team over at the Spencer mansion, and they're also going to run into wacky zombie problems, but of course, there's going to be more underneath the mansion, So overall, I really liked all these sets, the rundown town, the big gothic police station, the creepy orphanage, the mansion with all the secrets underneath it. It's really fun. All these locations really do pay off to the video game's art style, those pre-rendered backgrounds, and because they were pre-rendered, they put a whole bunch of detail, and they all felt really, really grungy, and that is carried over. The grunge and the cool zombie sequences, more action, more horror and less action. The first Resident Evil series was very heavy action, and there is action here, but it's not an action movie. It's very much a zombie horror survival movie, and I really do appreciate that. And they focus on fewer but tougher zombies, and I do like how as they fight them, they naturally figure out they have to go for the head, and it's not explained, like they don't say it directly to the camera, but you just see as they're fighting, they start to focus more on headshots, just because the characters start to figure this out, and I really did like how they felt and learned about it organically. Now, another thing, this is Resident Evil, so you do get other creatures other than zombies. I do like that they focused more on the zombies, so, when these other creatures did show up, it was cool and interesting and a change of pace, and it felt like things got tougher and more real, but also focusing on the zombies. This is a zombie movie, you have to do that. With the creatures they have, I believe it's called the Licker. My brother will correct me if I'm wrong. Who was the same monster that appeared in the first Resident Evil movie. So, I guess he's the most famous monster. Gotta carry him over to be the monster in this one. Really cool design. Does work a lot better with modern special effects. And yeah, a really cool, interesting change of pace. A very tough monster. And a cool fight sequence. However, they do introduce one other monster, a big boss at the end of the movie. And it's one of the bigger, more over-the-top elements, and I really do feel that they should have scaled more to get to here. Show us a Licker, that's cool. Show us a few other big, wacky monsters, and that helps us get to the level when you show us this big boss, because the big boss is wacky and cartoony. I did like that they incorporated him in there. It's a very important part of the Resident Evil games is to have the big boss. But it did feel a little bit that it came out of nowhere, and it is a problem I felt that they could have fixed with proper scaling. But overall, I did think it was fun, and I did like to see the alternate monsters. I just wish there were a few more of them when we got a better sense of scaling. But I also like that they didn't take away from the zombie elements. It's zombie first and foremost, so that was pretty cool. But overall, I felt this was a good, solid zombie film, Lots of grunge, all the locations were pretty cool, Spencer Mansion, classic haunted mansion, grungy streets straight from the game, big gothic police station, and, lots of really fun stuff, really fun zombie action, more focused on horror. I felt this was a really solid entry, but I don't know what the internet's problems is. The internet... Johannes Roberts made a solid slasher movie, and then he comes up again and makes a solid zombie movie. Two really good, solid genre pieces, and then the internet just hates them for whatever reason. I don't know, but I really like this guy, and he's done lots of, older movies that I hadn't really heard of. I browsed through his IMDb. I need to go and look at more of his older stuff, because... I am really excited for what this guy does. It's a lot of, bigger genre-focused stuff, and I feel like everything nowadays, there's too much of a sense of making it perfect, but also it becomes boring and forgettable, so I do like when they go a little more wacky and over the top, But anyway, I like this movie pretty well. Actual characters from the games... the right atmosphere, the grungy city as opposed to that overly clean laboratory from the first one. And yeah, it was a solid genre film. I really don't know what the internet's problem was, but anyway, I like this movie. I am a zombie geek, granted, but I thought it was pretty fun. I'm going to go ahead and turn over to my brother Michael. He knows a lot more about the video games, and I'll give him this next spot, and he can explain, anything that I missed or just didn't get, and he'll go ahead and have his plot points now. So have a good day. I'm going to turn it over to my brother now. See you later.
Alright, so I'm Mike. I do video game reviews on this channel. I'm a huge fan of these games. I really like this movie. I haven't played all the games, but I do really like them so far. I played the RE0 and 1 remasters that came out 2015 and 16. I played the RE2 and RE3 remake. And I'm working my way through RE4. I do already know the story of it because, let's play of it. and I generally know things about the other ones. And so this is an adaptation of 1 and 2, so it works out. It's a fun movie. This is a big improvement on the last movie, in my opinion. You know, that one's sort of like just RE-ish and not really an RE movie. I think if that movie wasn't titled, wasn't a Resident Evil movie, that I think it'd be remembered as like a decent RE-ish, RE-inspired movie. But it's not great. But this movie's good. It's not as good as the game. You could always say, that always a classic example of like, oh, the book's not as good as the movie, or in this case, the game's not as good as the movie. But like, it's sort of like, of course, it's not as good as the movie, but like, but it's still really good. I think it's a really good thing for those of us who played the game and want to see like a real life version of RE, for a bit, or those of you who haven't played the game like Zach, you get to see a bit into the RE at all. Now, seeing as it's adapting the first two games, at about 20 hours of gameplay or so, it makes sense that there's stuff missing. This works as a good slice of RE. Now, I think that works fine. They need to do that to make it into a movie. But I think there are some things that are missing, that hurt more when they're missing than others. A big one for me was traps and puzzles. It really helps to write the sort of old haunted mansion bits of it. We did get to see the mansion is nice, but I think they should have had at least like one trap. There's also Barry's not really in this. Not really in this. He's a bigger part of RE1. Also, Rebecca's not in this. Barry's kind of mushed in with another. His plot's kind of mushed with another character. It's not really the same. Another thing that's missing is sci-fi elements. Usually at the end, there's like a big sci-fi lab, and you don't really get that. It sort of like works as like the past, present, future layering in the game. Bit disappointed that wasn't really there. There's also a fair few monsters. They're missing Mr. X, the Hunter, the Tyrant. Those are some of the things I would have liked to see, but maybe they'll get another chance to get stuff back in, and maybe they'll have like a side quill of RE0. Maybe like throw in Carlos and some other elements from RE3. One thing I really like is the characters are represented well. I think the characters on RE series are simple, but they're also really good. They're good archetypes, and the main one that's off is Wesker. He's not like conniving like in the games, and he's not like as big a part as the old world plot as he was before. Jill's a little off. She's a bit too Vasquez from Aliens from time to time, especially in her intro. But she overall is fairly close. Leon's mostly good, but I feel like keeps his rookiness a bit too long. I think you could have had him develop a little faster. But Chris and Claire are pretty spot on. I think they did the best job of recreating those characters. Really gonna have to say again, even though Zach talked about this a lot, I'm glad they that they nailed the sets and the atmosphere. It's a bit weird that some of the places that are exact replicas from the game are not, that are like smaller and like scaled down for whatever reason. Probably because budget, I would guess. But I do like a lot that even when you're in an area that's not in the game, is that it feels like a place that could be. It could be in the game. It looks like it belongs in this world. It all feels like Raccoon City. Overall, this is really good. It nails RE's action horror split, the characters, the atmosphere. It's much better than the first one. There's a scene at the end of this one. It's similar to the end of the other one, and also at the end of RE2. That's what they're both taking from. And you can really see which one's RE-ish and which one's a real Resident Evil movie. I think out of what I've seen so far, this is the first unironically fully good video game movie higher than like a 6 or 7. And this is I personally rate things. This is in the channel rating, and I'm giving this movie a 8.3 out of 10. So that was really good. That's about it.